Dust covered everything in the lower stables of Crimson Spire, and Owen had long since stopped caring about keeping his clothes clean. The 19-year-old human boy dragged another bale of dried grass across the stone floor, leaving a trail behind him. Above his head, somewhere in the massive volcano that housed the dragon capital, warriors from across the galaxy were probably doing something impressive. Owen did not care about that either. He just wanted to finish feeding the transport animals and maybe find something decent to eat before bed. His uncle had brought him to this world 3 weeks ago. The old man needed help with the merchant caravan, and Owen needed work. Simple as that. Nobody told him they would be staying on a planet ruled by actual dragons. Nobody mentioned there would be some kind of massive competition happening. His uncle just said they were delivering goods and it would take a month, maybe 2. Owen tossed fresh grass into the feeding trough and wiped sweat from his forehead. The heat from the volcano made everything uncomfortable. His shirt stuck to his back. His boots were falling apart. He missed home more than he wanted to admit. Back on Earth, he had a small room above a bakery and a job that did not involve shoveling alien animal droppings. But his sister needed medicine, and medicine cost money. So here he was on the other side of the galaxy, covered in dust and trying not to think about how much he wanted a real shower. Something moved in the shadows near the back wall. Owen grabbed his pitchfork, then felt stupid. What was he going to do with a pitchfork if something dangerous actually showed up? He squinted into the darkness and saw a pair of golden eyes reflecting the torchlight. A dragon emerged from the shadows. Owen's heart tried to escape through his throat. The creature was smaller than the massive beasts he had seen flying overhead, but still plenty big enough to eat him in 2 bites. Its scales were deep blue with silver edges, and it moved with the awkward energy of something young and not quite grown into its body yet. They stared at each other. Owen held very still. The dragon tilted its head like a confused puppy. "You are not supposed to be down here," Owen said, then immediately felt ridiculous for talking to a dragon. The dragon made a sound somewhere between a chirp and a growl. It sat down on its haunches and watched him with obvious curiosity. "Are you lost?" Owen asked. He slowly lowered the pitchfork. The dragon did not seem aggressive. Just curious, maybe a little nervous. The dragon crept closer and sniffed at the bale of grass. Owen laughed despite himself. "That's not for you. That's for the pack animals." The dragon looked at him with what he could only describe as disappointment. Owen shook his head and went back to work. If the dragon wanted to watch him do chores, fine. Better than being alone down here in the dark. Over the next hour, Owen finished his tasks while the dragon followed him around like a curious cat. He found himself talking to it, mostly because the silence felt too heavy. He told the dragon about Earth, about his sister who was sick, about how he did not understand why anyone would want to be a warrior when there were perfectly good jobs that did not involve getting stabbed. The dragon seemed to listen. At one point, Owen tried to explain what a penguin was, using his hands to demonstrate how they waddled. The dragon made a huffing sound that might have been laughter. Owen grinned. At least someone appreciated his comedy. A roar echoed through the stable complex from somewhere above. The dragon's head snapped up and fear flashed across its reptilian face. It looked at Owen, then back toward where the sound came from. "You are hiding from something," Owen said. It was not a question. The dragon lowered its head. "Training," Owen guessed. "Someone making you practice fighting or breathing fire or whatever dragon kids have to learn?" The dragon's eyes brightened with what looked like relief at being understood. "Yeah, I get that," Owen said. He sat down on a bale of grass and the dragon settled beside him, its scales warm against his leg. "Sometimes you just need a break from everyone expecting you to be something you are not ready to be yet." They sat together in comfortable silence. Owen found himself relaxing despite the absurdity of the situation. A dragon was using him as a hiding spot from dragon responsibilities. His life had gotten very strange. Eventually, another dragon's head poked down the stable entrance. This one was larger, clearly an adult, with deep red scales and eyes that held ancient intelligence. It looked at the young dragon, then at Owen. Owen stood up quickly and bowed, because that seemed like the right thing to do when a building-sized reptile was staring at you. The adult dragon said something in a language of clicks and rumbles. The young dragon responded with what sounded like protests. The adult dragon's gaze shifted to Owen, studying him with uncomfortable intensity. Then it withdrew, and the young dragon reluctantly followed. but not before looking back at Owen with what he swore was gratitude. Owen released a breath he did not know he had been holding. His hands were shaking. He had just had a conversation with a dragon. Sort of, and he was still alive. That felt like an achievement worth celebrating. He finished his work and climbed the stairs back toward the merchant quarters. Through the narrow windows carved into the volcanic rock, he could see the arena where the competition was happening. Bright lights and the sounds of combat filtered down. Warriors were fighting for glory and honor, and whatever prize the Dragon King was offering. Owen was just happy he had made a friend today, even if that friend was a truant dragon who did not want to go to training. Sometimes he thought the small victories mattered more than the big ones. He had no idea how right he was about to become. King Valdris the Ancient had lived for 5,000 years, and in all that time, he had never been this bored. The massive red dragon lay sprawled across his obsidian throne, chin resting on one clawed foot, watching yet another warrior demonstrate why they deserved to lead his armies. This one was a saurian, all muscle and scales and aggressive posturing. The creature roared and smashed practice dummies with enthusiastic violence. The court applauded politely. Valdris wanted to set something on fire just to feel something other than crushing disappointment. His advisor, a silver dragon named Rothus, leaned close. "Your Majesty appears less than impressed." "Rothus, that creature just spent 10 minutes showing me 17 different ways to break bones," Valdris muttered. "I could do that in my sleep. I was doing that before his great-grandfather was born. Why does everyone think I need another killer? The announcement did ask for a champion, my lord. I asked for someone who could save this kingdom. Everyone heard champion and brought me butchers." Valdris shifted his weight and his throne cracked slightly under the movement. He was getting old even for a dragon. His scales did not shine like they used to. His fire burned less hot, and his kingdom was dying around him. Not from outside threats, but from something worse. His people had forgotten how to be anything other than angry. Another warrior stepped forward. This one was mech-born, half organic and half machine with weapons built into its arms. It demonstrated its arsenal with cold efficiency. Valdris stifled a yawn that came out as a small puff of smoke. The mech-born took this as encouragement and increased its display, firing plasma bolts at reinforced targets. The crowd oohed and awed. Valdris contemplated taking a nap. The competition continued for hours. An aquatic deepkin performed combat inside a floating sphere of water. An insectoid hive speaker showed coordinated attack patterns with a dozen drones. A feline Nexari moved through an obstacle course faster than most eyes could follow. Each performance was technically impressive. Each one made Valdris more depressed about the state of the galaxy. When the day's demonstrations finally ended, Valdris retreated to his private chambers. Rothus followed, as always. "We have 3 more days of this, my lord," the advisor said gently. "Perhaps tomorrow will bring someone more suitable." "They are all suitable for war, Rothus. That is the problem." Valdris settled onto his heated stone bed and felt every one of his 5,000 years in his bones. "My people are divided. The young dragons think only of conquest. The old dragons cling to traditions that no longer serve us. The clans barely speak to each other without baring teeth. I need someone who can remind us why we are worth fighting for. Not just how to fight." Rothus said nothing. There was nothing to say. They both knew the kingdom was crumbling from within, and no amount of military might would fix it. Down in the lower stables, Owen had no idea any of this was happening. He was too busy trying to clean mud off his only pair of decent pants. The transport animal had kicked over its water trough, and Owen had slipped in the resulting mess while trying to fix it. Now he sat on an overturned bucket, scrubbing at the stains and wondering if his life could get any more ridiculous. The young blue dragon from the previous day appeared again, creeping through the shadows like a child sneaking out after bedtime. Owen looked up and could not help but smile. "Back again? Do not you have somewhere important to be?" The dragon settled next to him with a contented rumble. Owen gave up on his pants and tossed the wet rag aside. "You know, back on Earth we have these things called dogs," Owen said. "They are like you, but much smaller and less likely to accidentally burn down buildings. They follow people around and just want attention. You remind me of a dog." The dragon made an offended sound that was definitely disagreement. No, it is a compliment," Owen insisted. "Dogs are great. Very loyal. Good friends. Much better than cats." He paused. "Actually, you also kind of remind me of a cat. Showing up when you want something. Leaving when you are bored. knocking things over just to see what happens. The dragon huffed smoke at him. Owen laughed and reached out to scratch under the dragon's chin without thinking. The dragon went very still, and Owen realized what he had just done. He had just touched a dragon. He pulled his hand back quickly. "Sorry, I forgot you are not a pet. That was really disrespectful, probably. Do not eat me." The dragon pushed its head forward, clearly wanting more scratches. Owen relaxed and obliged, finding a spot behind the dragon's jaw that made its back leg twitch. "You are ridiculous," Owen told it. "A ridiculous dragon who should be up there learning to be all noble and fierce, and instead you are down here getting chin scratches from a human stable boy. What would your family think?" The dragon made a sound that might have been contentment or agreement or both. Owen found himself telling more stories about Earth, about his sister who could burn water when she tried to cook, about his neighbor's cat that terrorized the entire street, about the time he tried to impress a girl by juggling and ended up breaking his own nose. The dragon listened to every word with focused attention that made Owen feel heard in a way he had not felt in a long time. It was nice having someone to talk to who did not judge or interrupt or expect him to be anything other than himself. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by a commotion above. The sound of running feet and shouting voices echoed down through the stable complex. Owen and the dragon both looked up. "That does not sound good," Owen muttered. The dragon stood and moved toward the stairs. Owen followed, curiosity overcoming common sense. They climbed together toward the noise, and Owen's life was about to become much more complicated than muddy pants and lonely stable duty. The pack animal decided it had enough of the loud noises and bright lights exactly when Owen was leading it past the grand arena. One moment everything was fine. The next moment, a warrior set off some kind of explosive demonstration, and the six-legged creature Owen was guiding absolutely lost its mind. It reared up, yanked the lead rope from Owen's hands, and bolted directly toward the competition floor. Owen did what any responsible stable hand would do. He chased after it while yelling apologies to everyone the animal knocked over. The creature galloped through the arena entrance, disrupted a carefully choreographed weapon demonstration, and sent a display of ceremonial spears clattering across the stone floor. Owen ran after it, slipped on the polished ground, crashed into a table covered in competition trophies, and ended up flat on his back in the center of the arena floor with a decorative shield spinning next to his head. Silence fell across the massive space. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species stared at the muddy human boy sprawled in the middle of their sacred competition. Owen looked up at the ceiling and seriously considered just staying there until everyone forgot he existed. "I am so sorry," he called out to nobody in particular. The animal got scared. "I will get it out of your way immediately." He scrambled to his feet, now covered in mud, sweat, and his own embarrassment. The pack animal stood near the edge of the arena, looking confused about how it got there. Owen approached slowly, hands out, making soothing sounds. The creature allowed itself to be caught, probably realizing it had made poor life choices. Owen led it toward the exit, very aware of every eye following him. He kept his head down and moved as quickly as possible without spooking the animal again. As he passed near the throne platform, he made the mistake of glancing up. King Valdris was looking directly at him. Not with anger, which Owen expected. Not with disgust, which he would have understood. The ancient dragon was watching him with something that looked almost like interest. Their eyes met for just a moment, and Owen felt his entire body freeze. Then he remembered to bow, jerked into an awkward half-bend that nearly made him drop the lead rope, and hurried out of the arena before he could make things worse. He got the animal back to the stables and spent the next hour hiding in the feed room, certain that dragon guards were going to show up and either execute him or throw him off the planet. Neither happened. Eventually, his uncle found him. "What were you thinking?" the old merchant demanded. "Do you know how many important people you just embarrassed us in front of?" "It was an accident," Owen protested. The animal got scared. "You need to be more careful. We are guests here. We cannot afford to make enemies." His uncle paced back and forth, wringing his hands. "Just stay down here and keep your head down for the rest of our visit." "No more incidents," Owen agreed readily. He had no interest in being the center of attention ever again. He went to bed that night hoping everyone would forget what happened by morning. They did not forget. The next day, a dragon guard appeared at the stable entrance and informed Owen that King Valdris requested his presence in the throne room immediately. Owen's stomach dropped to his feet. "Am I in trouble?" he asked. The guard, a stern green dragon with ceremonial armor, did not answer. That felt like a bad sign. Owen's uncle tried to come with him, but the guard said the summons was for Owen alone. The human diplomats in the merchant group spent 15 frantic minutes trying to coach him on proper court etiquette. Do not speak unless spoken to. Bow at least 3 times. Never turn your back on the king. Address him as your eternal majesty. Do not make eye contact unless invited to do so. Owen's head spun with rules by the time the guard led him through the winding passages of the volcanic palace. They climbed stairs carved from black stone, passed through halls decorated with ancient battle tapestries, and finally entered a throne room so large it had its own weather patterns. Smoke drifted near the ceiling. The heat was intense. King Valdris sat on his throne, impossibly massive, red scales gleaming in the firelight. His eyes were like molten gold. Owen had never felt so small in his entire life. He remembered to bow, though his legs shook so badly he nearly fell over. Your Eternal Majesty, he managed. I am extremely sorry about yesterday. It will never happen again. Come closer, the king said. His voice was deep enough to vibrate in Owen's chest. Owen approached the throne on trembling legs. He kept his eyes on the floor and tried to remember all the etiquette rules. He was pretty sure he was forgetting most of them. Why did you disrupt the sacred competition? Valdris asked. The pack animal got frightened, Your Eternal Majesty. I was trying to catch it before it caused more trouble. I did not mean to interrupt anything important. It was just bad timing and my own clumsiness. The words tumbled out too fast. Owen knew he was rambling but could not stop. I am just a stable hand. I should not have even been near the arena. It was completely my fault and I take full responsibility and I promise it will not happen again. There was a long silence. Owen risked a glance up and saw the king watching him with that same interested expression from yesterday. It was unnerving. You called the competition unimportant, Valdris said. Owen's blood turned to ice. No, Your Majesty. I meant that my work was unimportant compared to the competition. The competition is clearly very important. Very, very important. But you were not watching it. I was working, Your Majesty. Someone has to tend the animals. And you do not care who wins? Owen hesitated. This felt like a trap. I am sure whoever wins will be very deserving, Your Majesty. That was not what I asked. Owen swallowed hard. The truth seemed safer than trying to say what he thought the king wanted to hear. I do not really understand what the competition is for, Your Majesty. Everyone seems very strong and skilled. I am sure any of them would be good at whatever job you need done. Something changed in the king's expression. His eyes brightened slightly. You think they are all equally qualified? I think I am not qualified to judge warriors, Your Majesty. I just take care of animals and try not to cause disasters, though I'm apparently bad at that last part. The king made a sound that might have been a laugh. Owen was not sure. He stood there awkwardly, waiting to find out if he was going to be punished or dismissed or possibly eaten. Return tomorrow evening, Valdris said. Alone, I wish to speak with you again. Owen blinked. Your Majesty? You are dismissed. Owen bowed 3 times, back toward the door like the diplomats had instructed, and fled the throne room completely confused about what just happened. Owen stood outside the throne room the next evening, trying to convince himself not to run away. His uncle had given him a clean shirt. The diplomats had reminded him of proper etiquette 17 more times. None of it made him feel less terrified. He was a stable boy from Earth who could barely keep his own life together. What could a dragon king possibly want to talk to him about? The guard admitted him, and Owen entered to find King Valdris alone in the massive chamber. No advisors, no court, just one very large dragon and one very nervous human. Owen bowed and waited. Sit, Valdris said, gesturing to a stone bench near the throne. Owen sat. The stone was warm from the volcanic heat below. He folded his hands in his lap to keep them from shaking. Tell me about Earth, the king said. Of all the things Owen expected, that was not one of them. Your Majesty? Your homeworld. Tell me about it. Owen had no idea where to start. It is a lot smaller than this planet, Your Majesty. We do not have dragons. Just humans and animals. Some of the animals are pretty impressive, but nothing like you. He was rambling again. He tried to focus. What would Your Majesty like to know? What do humans value? Owen thought about it. Family mostly, friends. Having enough food and a safe place to sleep. Making sure the people we care about are okay. He paused. I guess that probably sounds boring to someone like you. Why would it sound boring? Because you are a king who lives in a volcano palace and has warriors from across the galaxy competing for your favor. My life is feeding animals and trying to save enough money so my sister can afford her medicine. We exist on very different scales. Valdris shifted on his throne. Tell me about your sister. So Owen did. He talked about how she got sick 3 years ago, how the treatments were expensive, how their parents were dead, and it was just the two of them. He talked about how she wanted to be a teacher, but had to stop working because of the illness. He talked about how she still smiled every day even when she felt terrible, and how she always told him not to worry even though he could see the pain in her eyes. The king listened without interrupting. When Owen finished, Valdris was quiet for a long moment. You came all the way across the galaxy for her, the king said. She is my sister. Of course I did. Many beings would not, Owen shrugged. Then they are not very good siblings. Something like approval flickered in the king's golden eyes. What do you think of this competition? Owen knew he should probably say something diplomatic, but the king kept asking questions that seemed to want honest answers. I think everyone is very impressive, Your Majesty. But I do not understand what you are looking for. They are all great warriors. They can all fight and strategize and lead armies. So how do you choose? That is precisely my problem, Valdris said. I do not need another warrior. I need something else entirely, and everyone who comes before me only shows me violence. What do you need? The king looked at him for a long time. I need my people to remember joy. Owen blinked. Your Majesty? Valdris settled lower on his throne, suddenly looking less like an intimidating ruler and more like someone very tired. Dragons were not always so grim. We used to sing. We used to create art. We used to celebrate life instead of just defending it. But centuries of conflict hardened us. We forgot how to be anything except soldiers. Now we are strong and miserable and slowly tearing ourselves apart from the inside. Owen sat very still, hardly believing he was hearing this. I am dying, Valdris said quietly. Not today, perhaps not for another decade, but my time is ending. I need to choose a successor's advisor who can guide them. Everyone brings me killers. I need someone who understands that survival is not the same as living. I am not sure how I can help with that, Your Majesty. I do not know anything about dragons or politics or running kingdoms. No, Valdris agreed. But you know about taking care of others. You traveled across the galaxy for a sibling. You chase after frightened animals instead of letting them fend for themselves. You befriended young Pip instead of being afraid of him. Owen's head snapped up. You know about that? Pip is my great-grandson. He reported that a strange human in the stables told him jokes and made him feel better about failing his fire-breathing test. You gave him something no dragon has given him. You gave him permission to not be perfect. Owen's face heated. I did not mean to undermine anyone's authority, Your Majesty. I just thought he looked sad. That is exactly my point. Valdris leaned forward. Tell me, human. If you saw me sad, would you care? Of course I would care. Being sad is terrible. Nobody should have to feel that way if someone can help. Even if that someone is just a stable boy and I am a king. Sadness does not care about job titles, Your Majesty. Valdris made that sound again, the one that might have been a laugh. How old are you, Owen? 19, Your Majesty? 19 years, and you already understand what I have spent 5,000 years forgetting. The king settled back. Do you know what happened when you ran through the arena yesterday? I made a complete mess and embarrassed everyone? You made me laugh. Not out loud, but inside I felt genuine amusement for the first time in decades. You were so earnestly apologetic, so completely human in your disaster. It reminded me that not everything has to be dignified and serious and controlled. Owen had no idea what to say to that. Return tomorrow evening, Valdris said. Bring stories. Bring jokes. Bring whatever ridiculous human perspective makes you think a stable boy can talk to a king like an equal. I do not think we are equals, Your Majesty. You are clearly much more important. Perhaps, Valdris said, but you made me feel something other than disappointed. That makes you more valuable than you realize. Now go. I have warriors to dismiss who think showing me new ways to kill makes them worthy of leadership. Owen bowed and left, his head spinning. He had somehow become the king's personal comedian. His life had gotten so strange that he could not even explain it in letters home. His sister would never believe this. 3 evenings of conversation with King Valdris had given Owen a completely new perspective on dragons. though it did not make him any less nervous when the guard summoned him to the grand arena at dawn. This time, every warrior remaining in the competition was present. Thousands of spectators filled the massive stone seats. Owen stood near the back, trying to be invisible while his heart hammered against his ribs. The king emerged from the royal entrance, his massive form commanding instant silence. He moved to the center of the arena floor, and every being present bowed or showed respect in their species' customary way. Owen bowed too, hoping this was not about him. "The competition ends today," Valdris announced, his voice carrying through the volcanic chamber. "One final test will determine who stands beside dragons as my chosen champion." The warriors straightened, ready for combat. Several were already reaching for weapons. Owen saw the Saurian warrior crack his knuckles in anticipation. The mechborn's weapon systems hummed to life. The Nexari crouched low, prepared to demonstrate speed. "The test is this," Valdris said. "Make me believe in tomorrow." Confusion rippled through the arena. Warriors looked at each other uncertainly. Several called out for clarification, but the king simply returned to his throne and waited. The Saurian stepped forward first, clearly deciding to interpret the challenge in his own way. He delivered a speech about military strength and how unity through conquest would secure the Dragon Kingdom's future. His words were full of battle strategy and tactical superiority. Valdris listened with an expression that showed nothing. The mechborn went next, presenting calculated predictions about technological advancement and resource management. It showed holograms of projected economic growth and defensive capabilities. The presentation was thorough and completely emotionless. Valdris's tail twitched slightly, which Owen had learned meant the king was getting annoyed. The Nexari offered to eliminate all current threats to the dragon throne through stealth and assassination. She listed enemy clans and rival territories with chilling efficiency. Valdris closed his eyes briefly, looking pained. One by one, the warriors presented their answers. Every single one focused on domination, victory, security through force, or demonstrations of power. Every answer made Valdris look sadder. Owen watched from his spot near the wall and slowly realized what was happening. They were all giving the wrong answer. The king did not want to conquer tomorrow. He wanted a reason to look forward to it. A Deepkin warrior was speaking about naval superiority when a guard approached Owen and informed him quietly that he was included in this test. Owen's stomach dropped. "There has been a mistake," Owen whispered. "I am not a competitor." "King's orders," the guard said. And that was that. When the Deepkin finished his presentation about controlling water routes, Valdris looked directly at Owen. "You, human stable boy, come forward." Every eye in the arena turned to stare. Owen wished the ground would open up and swallow him. He walked to the center of the arena on shaking legs, very aware of the warriors' hostile glares. Several were openly laughing at the idea that a stable hand was competing against them. Owen stood before the throne and bowed. His mind was completely blank. What could he possibly say that would impress anyone, after all those elaborate presentations? "Well?" Valdris prompted, but his eyes were kind. Not demanding. Just curious. Owen took a breath. He could only tell the truth. He was not smart enough to do anything else. "I do not know much about military strategy or technology or running kingdoms," Owen started. His voice sounded small in the huge space. "But I know about my nephew back home. He is 5 years old. He draws pictures of dragons all the time. Not scary dragons, happy dragons. Dragons flying through clouds just because flying looks fun. Dragons eating giant cakes. Dragons playing games." A few warriors snickered. Owen ignored them. "He makes up stories about dragons who help people. Dragons who teach small animals to fly. Dragons who paint rainbows in the sky with their fire. He thinks dragons are the most wonderful things in the universe." Owen looked at Valdris. He has never met a dragon. He just decided they were worth believing in. The arena was quiet now. Even the warriors had stopped laughing. "Humans do that," Owen continued. "We believe in things we have never seen. We hope for futures we might not live to see. My sister plants flowers in her window box even though she might not be alive when they bloom. My neighbor fixed the roof on the community shelter even though he is 90 years old and will probably never need to use it. We build things for people who are not born yet. We plant trees we will never sit under." He spread his hands helplessly. "You asked me to make you believe in tomorrow. I cannot do that. But I can tell you why humans believe in tomorrow. We believe because we choose to, Not because we are guaranteed to wake up, not because tomorrow will definitely be better, but because giving up means all the hard parts were for nothing. My sister keeps fighting her illness because she wants to be there for my nephew. I work terrible jobs across the galaxy because she needs me to. We keep going because the people we love deserve us to try. Owen's voice grew stronger. Tomorrow matters because we decide it matters. Because someone 5 years old draws pictures of happy dragons. Because someone plants flowers they might never see grow. Because hope is not about knowing everything will be fine. Hope is about deciding that trying is worth it even when you do not know. He stopped, suddenly aware that he had been rambling. Several warriors were staring at him with expressions ranging from confusion to contempt. Owen had probably just embarrassed himself in front of everyone important in this part of the galaxy. Then King Valdris rose from his throne and descended to the arena floor. The ancient dragon approached Owen until they stood face to face, the massive creature towering over the small human. Owen held his breath. Valdris lowered his great head in a bow. The arena erupted in shocked gasps and outraged shouts. The Saurian warriors' roar of outrage shook dust from the arena ceiling. Several other warriors joined in protest, their voices blending into a cacophony of anger and disbelief. Owen stood frozen as King Valdris raised his head and silenced the crowd with a blast of fire that scorched the air above their heads. "This human boy," Valdris said, his voice carrying absolute authority, "has given me the only thing I asked for. Hope. Not promises of victory. Not displays of strength. Not strategies for conquest. Hope. He is a stable boy," the mechborn called out. "He has no training, no combat ability, no leadership experience." "Exactly," Valdris replied. "He has something more valuable. He has perspective." The king turned to address the full arena. "For 3 days I have watched warriors demonstrate how to kill, how to dominate, how to control. Every one of you showed me power. Not one of you showed me purpose." The dragon moved to the center of the arena, commanding attention. "I am dying. Perhaps not today, perhaps not this year, but my time approaches. I do not need a champion who can win battles. I need someone who can remind my people why we fight in the first place. We have become so focused on being strong that we have forgotten to be alive." Valdris looked back at Owen. This human child spoke of a nephew who draws happy dragons, of a sister who plants flowers she may never see bloom, of humans who build for futures they will not witness. He showed me that true strength is not in dominating tomorrow, but in believing it is worth seeing. The Silver Advisor, Rothus, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, surely you cannot mean to choose a human stable boy as your champion." "I do not choose him as a warrior," Valdris said. "I choose him as a reminder, a living example that life is about more than survival." He turned to Owen. "Will you accept this role? To stay with my people and show them what you showed me? To teach dragons to laugh again?" Owen's mouth opened and closed several times. "Your Majesty, I am not qualified for anything like that. I just take care of animals and tell bad jokes. I do not know how to teach anyone anything, especially not dragons." "That is precisely why you are qualified," Valdris said gently. "You do not carry the weight of expectations. You see the world as it could be, not as it has always been. You make friends with truant dragons instead of reporting them. You chase frightened animals instead of letting them run. You care about things that seem small because you understand that life is built from small moments." The Nexari warrior stepped forward, her fur bristling. "This is an insult to everyone who competed. We trained our entire lives for this honor." "And you are all excellent warriors," Valdris acknowledged. "Any of you could serve me well in battle. But I am not preparing for battle. I am preparing my people for peace, and they have forgotten how to live in it." He looked at each warrior in turn. "You may leave with honor. You competed well. But the role I need to fill is not one any of you were offering." Several warriors departed immediately, their pride wounded. Others stayed, watching with confused expressions. A few looked thoughtful, perhaps beginning to understand what the king meant. Owen felt like he was going to pass out. "Your Majesty, I cannot stay here permanently. My sister needs me. I have to go back to Earth." "Your contract with the merchant caravan is for 2 months more," Valdris said. "Stay that long. Show my people what you have shown me. If at the end you wish to leave, I will arrange transportation home and payment enough to care for your sister for years." Owen looked at the Dragon King, at the expectant court, at the handful of warriors still watching. He thought about his sister who kept planting flowers. He thought about his nephew who drew happy dragons. He thought about all the humans who kept hoping even when it seemed pointless. "I will try," Owen said quietly. "I do not promise I will be any good at this, but I will try." Valdris's eyes brightened with something that looked like relief. "That is all any of us can do." The next weeks were strange beyond anything Owen could have imagined. His first official act was to invite young dragons to help with the stables, which scandalized the elder dragons but delighted the youngsters. Pip was the first to volunteer, and soon a dozen young dragons were learning to care for the transport animals. Owen taught them human work songs. He told them stories about Earth. He explained games he played as a child. Most importantly, he treated them like they were allowed to make mistakes, to be silly, to laugh without worrying about looking weak. The young dragons responded like flowers finally getting sunlight after a long winter. The elder dragons disapproved at first. Then they started noticing that their children seemed happier, less aggressive, more creative. A few brave adults began asking Owen questions about human culture. He answered honestly, sharing stories about human failures alongside the successes, showing that strength could coexist with vulnerability. Owen started organizing evening gatherings in the lower courtyards. He called them story circles. Dragons came to share tales not about battles and victories, but about ordinary moments. A dragon elder spoke about the first time she saw her egg hatch. A young warrior described the beauty of flying through a lightning storm. Owen contributed stories about his grandmother's terrible cooking and the neighborhood dog who thought it was a wolf. Laughter returned to Crimson Spire. Slowly at first, then more freely. Dragons began creating art again. Someone started composing music. Young dragons put on silly performances that would have been considered undignified months earlier, and the adults clapped instead of scolding. King Valdris watched it all with quiet satisfaction. He and Owen still met most evenings, talking about everything and nothing. The king seemed lighter somehow, as if a burden was lifting. "You did what I could not," Valdris told him one night. "You gave them permission to be more than warriors." "I just gave them permission to be themselves," Owen replied. "Turns out dragons are not that different from humans. Everyone wants to feel like they matter for more than what they can destroy." 3 months after his arrival, Owen prepared to leave. The Dragon King kept his promise, providing enough payment to care for Owen's sister for years. But saying goodbye was harder than Owen expected. Pip cried. Other young dragons he had befriended gathered to see him off. "Visit someday," Valdris said. "Bring your nephew." "I would like to meet the boy who draws happy dragons." "I will," Owen promised. "And maybe you could visit Earth sometime. I think my sister would like to meet the Dragon King who hired a stable boy to teach hope." Valdris chuckled, smoke curling from his nostrils. "Perhaps I will. Someone should remind Earth dragons that humans are more impressive than they realize." Owen boarded the transport ship with a lighter heart than when he arrived. He had come to this world to earn money for medicine. He left having learned that sometimes the greatest victories had nothing to do with fighting. Sometimes the most impressive feat was simply helping someone remember how to laugh. Behind him, in the volcanic palace of Crimson Spire, dragons continued gathering for story circles. They sang songs a human stable boy taught them. They told jokes to each other. They remembered that strength should protect joy, not replace it. And somewhere in the royal gardens, young dragons were planting flowers they might never see bloom, having learned from a human that hoping for tomorrow was the bravest thing anyone could do.